Welcome to another Rooster Talk. Today I'm down at Islandbrook Estate down at Yilverton here in Margaret River for the Margaret River series basically in celebration of 2 years of Samso in existence. I've got Rob Longley here, who's a geo running Ardiden Limited, who has a very interesting gold project here in Canada. Rob, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Noel, and congratulations on 2 years. I haven't yet done my 2 years at Ardiden, but we're starting to make some leaps and bounds here with our gold project, as you say, in Canada, Ontario. Today we've been announcing to the ASX that we've got our drill bit turning finally at Casagiminus, which is our flagship gold deposit. So we're up and about. It's been a very interesting 18 months for me at the helm here, as I'm sure the last 2 years for you has been at Samso, and you've seen a lot of projects, Noel, so I hope you can follow our story as we progress the drill bit and exploration at Pickel Lake.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a very interesting story. I've seen some, I mean, there's a lot of companies now heading over to Canada or have been in Canada and being more prevalent in the market space. Not saying that everyone's been rushing to Canada. Give us a sort of a brief overview of, what you've got there.
Yeah, we've got a massive district scale gold package is our primary asset. We also have lithium assets which were being developed before my tenure at Ardiden, and they still have some value and will come back into vogue at some stage, I'm sure. But really it's about the Pickel Lake Gold Project, where we've got a territory which is about 100 kilometres from east to west and at 660 odd square kilometres of Archean greenstone. That geology is pretty similar to our own back garden here in Western Australia. Noel, I'm not down south with you, I'm in West Perth, but I would cut my teeth as you did in the Murchison and the Eastern Goldfields, and we know Archean greenstone and gold mineralisation pretty well. There's always things to learn, but the geology at Pickel Lake is pretty similar, and we're very happy that we've got a drill bit poking into it straight away now.
Yeah, so I can see that you've got a resource there, and it's obviously in a mining centre there, and a lot of people are not familiar with how prospective Canada itself is for almost every commodity that you think of. The likes of Champion Iron and doing marvelously well, and I know Canada mainly from the my diamond pass. And gold has always been a big sector. I mean, they have monsters over there, and I don't think many investors in this part of the world appreciate what you may have potentially. The drilling that's coming up, any issues with trying to get yourself on the ground?
If you know Canada, Noel, you know that it takes time with permitting, and obviously this year in particular has been tough with COVID. So we've taken our time to make sure we've got the right permits and the right protocols in place to get this going. We would have liked to have been drilling 3 or 4 weeks ago, according to an original plan, but you take what you can and you get away when it's all ticked off. So we're pretty happy about that. And you're right about Canada. There are big gold mines and big base metals and nickel, obviously. Ontario is probably the prevalent mining province of Canada. Quebec and British Columbia being the other two obvious choices. I think there's something like 20 odd gold mines operating in Ontario itself. The most prolific of which is around the Kirkland Lake area in East Ontario, and over to just to the west of us at Red Lake, where Evolution have now taken the control of Newmont Gold Corp's old operations at Red Lake. To the north of us, Newmont still run a gold mine up there called Musselwhite. And in Pickel Lake itself, there were 4 actually underground gold mines that were run there from the 30s up until the late 90s, when the sort of lack of a gold price sort of put them into mothballs. But the fact that 3 million ounces at really high grade has come out of the Pickel Lake region tells you why there's people like us and others going back in the area, having another look at today's gold price and with some better exploration techniques. So we're in a gold country and in a gold province. It's great to be.
I mean, Canadian investors and Australian investors, they're almost very similar in terms of risk appetite and understanding of exploration and understanding of time that needs to be taken in terms of to get the process right.
Yeah.
What's the government issues like? Any are they harder, simpler? How do you? What's the experience?
My experience is that they're very forgiving in a way. They're not about to take licenses off you or penalise you. They're a very accommodating culture, I guess, in many ways, very accepting. But there are a lot of boxes to tick and a lot of permits to do water crossings, to get drill permits, which is why it's a tier 1 investment jurisdiction. You know, there's a reason why the likes of St Barbara, Evolution of others have wanted to come into the province and the country and invest. So with that comes regulation, which is no different to what we have in Western Australia, from my experience as well, and First Nation agreements, getting on well with the stakeholders and people that have been there a lot longer than us. So you're right, there's a fair bit of to and fro between Canadian and Australian mining and exploration companies and investors. They're very compatible. So it's not unusual for an ASX listed company to be operating in Canada and a TSX listed company to be back here in Australia at Fosterville or up in the Pilbara with other people looking for watermelon size conglomerate nuggets. So speak the same language mostly with a bit of French, and it's very interchangeable. So it's a good partnership.
Over the last couple of years, the fact that we're hearing more Aussies going over to Canada, is that something that is new, or are we just not? Have we just not been hearing the news that states that?
It's good question, Noel. I think there's a lot of news here in Australia that takes precedent, obviously, on the ASX before you look overseas, and you need to earn your stripes and get some reputation and some credibility into your stock before people believe why you're over there. And I think over 18 months, you know, we've as a team, we've managed to turn our share price around, you know, as lithium sort of faded into the background from 0.2 cents up to 2 cents. So for those that stuck with us and understood that a geologist and the team at the helm saw the exploration potential in a place like Ontario, have benefited greatly during that journey. So it's really just starting for us. Yeah, I guess Pickel Lake has brought the Canadian and Novo story into more sort of mainstream news here. There's a lot of people who have been in Canada for a long time, and vice versa. It depends what news you want to go looking for. There's so much news out there today that yeah, people read what a headline, maybe the first paragraph, if you're lucky, the first page, and move on. So with the gold price the way it is, there's a lot of stories to follow. But we're really grateful to people like yourselves and the shareholders in particular that have stuck with us and are starting to get benefit from that. So yeah, there was a lot of excitement, as you would have known, in Africa. Has investment waned a little bit there? I don't know. There's obviously still good projects there, and good to see juniors doing well over there as well. COVID's brought things into a bit of a focus about where you want to go or where you want to be stuck, perhaps. So different reasons why news comes and goes, I guess, in places like Canada or elsewhere. No, I'm certainly no expert, but I know we're onto a good thing at Pickel Lake. Yeah,
no, look, when I've learned about the Labrador Belt, where with Champion Irons making, you know, lots and lots of good news from there, and then I start to learn that, you know, over to the Alaskan Belt there, you've got another big belt of giants. When you look at the amount of resource that they've got, they're double-digit ounces and things like that. And we don't hear about it. We through our geology, you read about it, but we just don't hear it in the marketplace. I've just recently, you know, after looking at Champion, realizing that there is a lot of things in Canada which are massive projects. You know, Northern Star's gone over there. I didn't even know about that project until they mentioned it, which shows how little I've known about the prospectivity of Canada, apart from diamonds. But you know, talking to yourself before, I think we're seeing a lot of news flow coming. The geology there, it's not much different to what we see down, like as you mentioned, right, in the Goldfields and things like that. It's very similar geology.
Yeah, Yeah, it is. It is. So that part of it is easy for us. Having said that, you can have the best structures and the best lithologies and no gold. So there's always that element of you need to go and explore. I think maybe the seasonal factor to Canada, the harsh winters and short summers has perhaps turned a few people off. And as you would know from diamond, real diamond drilling, lac de Grau up in the Northwest Territories, you've got to have a pretty hardy constitution to get out there in winter on lakes and do drilling through frozen lake systems. So it takes a slightly different skill set, and we're fortunate enough to have a Canadian exploration manager based over there who knows this in and out. I've done a bit of that myself up in the Arctic regions as well. So for me, it's not particularly difficult, that part of it. There's some practicalities and some logistics around that. So, and then a lot of the TSXV companies in particular have been starved for cash for the last 5-6 years with Bitcoin and all the medicinal marijuana stocks going through the roof. And the lack of investment. So when you get cashed up bogans, for want of a better term, or gold producers producing a lot of cash flow, looking for places to invest that, there's a few boxes that they want to tick with tier 1 jurisdictions, big monster deposits that are operating, and exploration ground that's got great potential. I mean, Evolution not only picked up the mines around Red Lake, they picked up some fantastic exploration ground as well that I'm sure they're going to go back over in a different way and make new discoveries there. So yeah, all those things made it a pretty obvious choice for the Ardiden board when I first joined May last year to shift their attention across to gold, and it's paid dividends. So we're on the right track, but we're only just beginning, I guess, is the story. One hole in the ground now, but a big summer and winter program ahead just at one deposit. So it's pretty exciting for us.
And obviously, the state of the market is helping you guys. The gold market's really sort of extended itself. And I think if you look at the economics, in my conversations with Rick Rule, he seems to feel that that the gold price is going to be sustainable and probably rising. Recently, we heard that Warren Buffett's taken a position on the gold sector, and he's one of the guys that I've known who's at that space who was quite against investing in gold. So I think the hard projects in Canada, like you mentioned with COVID, I think you've got to pick where you want to go, and I think Canada is probably a logical place. You're in the mecca of these mega deposits. I think a lot of people, don't realize how big some of these deposits are. We deal with a couple of million ounces in the Goldfields, and we really think that's huge. But these guys are talking 15, 20, 30 ounces, 30 million ounces, I should say. I think it's a fantastic place to go and explore, especially now that you're well funded, I guess.
Well, you can never be as well funded as you'd like. Obviously, we'd like to get more drill rigs on the ground and spread our wings a little bit across our whole district. We're just starting on one spot, but obviously that gold price does help. The future of the gold price is better predicted by other people, but it's going to be pretty strong in the short to medium term, which will benefit explorers anywhere, I guess, with that sentiment. The deposits, Red Lake's an interesting example, and it's the same at Timmins, and these deposits are deep. So a bit like the deep underground mines around Kalgoorlie, and now if you look at Bronzewing, Jundee, those sort of areas. So once you've paid off that capital and are up and about, with things like high size and new technologies to discover lodes at depth without peppering it with underground drill holes initially, gives you that vision that if you can get onto a really high grade zone and chase that to depth, there's long life in the mines. And I'm not sure that's been fully appreciated, that these ore bodies have very small footprints. So Musselwhite, for example, was discovered by the Musselwhite brothers by just a quartz vein, in a rock in amongst the swamp. But once you get under the glacial till, which you know about as well from diamond deposits up there into bedrock, you get a very quick picture of the geology there because it's pretty fresh. You don't have the regolith aspects that we do here in Archean. So I guess that's the main geological difference. So you're straight into, what are you dealing with here? What are the structures? What's the veining? What's the association of sulfides and gold? So you get a very quick, clear picture. But it's at depth where you really want to go after. And Great Bear is a good story of that at Dixie, between us and Red Lake, where they're finding by drilling a number of prospects near surface the deeper they've gone, the more they all join up, and they're sitting on a true monster at Dixie, which is great to see, and encourages us that once you get that financing to support deeper drill holes and start doing ore reserve and or resource estimation at a greater depth, rather than the sort of top 200 odd meters, that's probably where the long-term value lies in places like Pickel Lake, is deep underground high-grade systems that go down 1 kilometre, 2 kilometres. And there's 2 examples at Pickel Lake that went to over 1 kilometre, and Red Lake's now approaching 2 kilometres deep and still going strong. So there's your long life gold production with a pretty small footprint, which is important up here.
Mm-hmm. In terms of timeline news flow for Ardiden, Rob, can you just give us a brief Plan A version of what you see the timeline is for your activities?
Yeah, I think we put that into a few presentations recently. It's an evolving beast, I guess, depending on when you get going. We'd like to think we'd have results out from this drilling campaign within 6 to 8 weeks, something along those lines. If there's enough results in that sort of short drilling program that we're doing in the summer or now it's autumn months, we'll update our JORC resource at Cass in the December quarter. We're also running a high definition geophysical program at some of our properties at Pickel Lake as we speak, or should be mobilising in the next day or two. So some interesting targeting from that, given that there hasn't really been done any airborne geophysics for 30 or 40 years up there, any detail. And we're working closely with some good consultants here to unravel the structures and the traps for good gold mineralisation throughout the whole district, which is a huge area. So they're the 2 main pieces of news, I guess, people will be looking for. And then drilling again early in the new year. Most places shut down over Christmas, but early in the new year, we'd hope to get going again at Cassagiminis with a drill rig or possibly 2, depending on funding, and really chase the resource to the east, which is where we've got the best growth potential, strike-wise at Cassagiminis itself. Beyond that, we'd like to be having another drill rig up at South Limb, which is another brownfields gold prospect that we have alongside an old underground mine. And what we'd really like to do in the winter next year is get drill rigs out to Dorothy Dobie, which is a big mineralised system which runs northwest from Cass, over 20 to 30 kilometres of really interesting strike length, where we have close to 100,000 ounces at 5.8 grams as a non-JORC estimated mineral estimate up through there. And that's really enticing because it's only shallow drilling. So we'd like to get up there and get drilling on 3 or 4 of our prospects to give ourselves the best chances of really getting a hold of something big.
Okay. Just the thing that you touched on, the fact that, we're obviously not dealing with, meters and meters of wetted stuff. Shallow drilling is probably going to be a cost-effective advantage for you guys. Is that something that you guys have factored in terms of, how far your dollar goes?
Yeah, well, down the track a bit, it has. At the moment, you've got to deal with what you've got. And at the moment, diamond rigs are prevalent in Ontario. RC rigs are very sparse. So, and getting in a large RC rig or even a large air core rig, it's got its logistical challenges at places like this until you get your own all-year tracking, which is what we'll be working on over the autumn and winter period as well, so that we can bring in potentially smaller rigs. We're also doing geochem programs to get the signature of these mineralised systems elsewhere on our property. Cass is just a small part of the Cassagiminis permit, so there's high-grade results up there that have never been chased up. I think, your till is probably somewhere between 2 to 8 metres thick, so you've got to get through that first knoll, and you know how difficult that can be with an air core rig. So you're going to have to probably case that loose stuff near surface and then go through that. So it's got its challenges, but dollar-wise, we've teamed up now with Major Drilling, who are a pretty well-renowned international drilling company. Their rates are pretty competitive, and the more rigs you get there, the cheaper the dollar is per metre, as you know. So, my background is running 6 or 7 rig programs, so that's what was really on my radar. But you've got to measure that carefully with bang for buck for what dollars you have in the chest. So we'll start with 1 rig, maybe 2 rigs in the winter, and see what other types of rigs and sampling we can bring into play. I haven't seen an air core rig in Ontario, but there are smaller rigs that you could use to test the surface. But I still suspect these mineralised systems are going to coalesce, and your greater hits will be at depth. So 200 metres with an RC rig is probably achievable. You've got a lot of water there, obviously, as well. So lifting that water up can compromise your quality of sample. So all those factors come into play, Noel, and we'll keep looking for the best way possible.
Okay. In closing, could you sum up, like the position of your company, if you had to do a sales pitch to potential shareholders, what's your best pitch, mate? What's your best pitch?
Gold, I guess, is it high grade gold, and building, a long-term project. That's really what we're trying to do. Cass will get some headlines, but we've got 17, 18 other prospects. So it's a big district scale project, and we're there for the long term. So building up multi-million ounce deposits, a number of them on this property, is really what we want to do. We want to run our own race as much as possible on that, and build a resource base, move that into reserves. That's really exciting, that can stand on its own feet and bring true value to people coming in now at 2 cents a share. As I said before, those that came in at 0.2, 0.3 cents again, some reward. And we'd like to obviously grow from 2 cents upwards as we get more rigs and more people and more smarts on the ground. It's going to take a good teamwork, and we've had a good small team. We're expanding that, and good support from the market and the investors, good brokers supporting us. So getting that news out is really important to people understand what you're doing there. But we're all about discovering and expanding the resource base. Don't drill, don't discover. So we're drilling, and we intend to be discovering.
Look, mate, I think I like in this market where it's so hot and everything's, everything's running. And I think I have been telling people that, it's time that people should start looking at something that's a bit more substance. Yes, we don't have a crystal ball, but I think something with substance is probably is where the bet is. If there's a correction that comes, these are the ones that will keep going, as opposed to those that just tend to be a corporate story. But Rob, thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you for giving us time. I hope we can continue our journey to follow your story. I think drilling results coming up is always good to wait for.
I appreciate it, Nolan. Congratulations on 2 years in that role. I know you're still a geologist under that cap, so I know you'll help us get that message out to the market about how exciting this is. Appreciate it, mate.
All right. Thanks, Rob. All the best.